Hey everyone, back to our SwiftUI series. Today we're going to be building a real world habit tracker app. You can see I have an example on the screen here of what we'll be creating, and we're going to be creating this from scratch using SwiftData. So we'll be able to store all the user's habits across app launches. If you've been learning SwiftUI and want to take your skills to the next level, this video is for you. So in this project, we'll learn how to use SwiftData for saving and retrieving these habits, build a dynamic UI with the list, forms, and modifiers. So for example here, if you want to create a new habit, we can also add some details. Hello, right? When we save the habit, we can see that it dynamically updates in the list. We'll be able to track the progress with interactive streaks here with a little calendar that we've created here. We haven't completed a day, so everything's currently gray. And we'll be managing those states efficiently to keep the UI reactive. By the end, you'll have a complete real-world habit tracker app that stores user habits, track progress, and dynamically updates. And at the end, if you want to take this app, take it and make it your own. I'll also give some advice on how to make it AppStore ready. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Okay, let's go ahead and create a new Swift project here. We're going to make sure we're on the iOS app template. I'm going to go ahead and call mine Habit Friend. I think my other example is Habit Buddy. This one's Habit Friend. We're going to make sure we're on SwiftUI, language Swift, testing system, and storage both on none. Yes, we're using SwiftData, but we don't want to have the storage be set to SwiftData. Otherwise, we're going to have a really weird kind of cursed template that we're working with. Let's go ahead and create that project now. So let's talk a little bit more about our app and those core features. So we are going to have a spot where users can create habits with a title and optional details. They can mark daily progress using a calendar style interface. We're going to be using SwiftData, so those habits aren't lost across launches, and the UI is going to dynamically update with those real-time state changes. So we need a structured data model. We're going to create something else for user interactions, and we'll be able to manage those states efficiently. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start by designing our data model. Before jumping into coding, the UI planning is absolutely crucial. So on the left panel here, if you want to hit plus or right click new empty file, this is where we're going to have our data model. I'm just going to call this one habit. All right, so we have a blank Swift file and we're going to do a couple imports. The first one is with SwiftData. That is what's handling our kind of saved data. And we're also going to be importing foundation because we're also going to be referencing dates. So this essentially represents a habit in the habit tracker app. This model is stored. Great. So when we're creating something with SwiftData, we're going to use the at model, and then we'll create a class of habit. I'm going to use a capital T here. Going to add a brace, and here's where we'll have our different variables. So for my example, I'm going to have the title, the details, and we're also going to store the created at date and the progress, so we can kind of have those completed days like I showed you in the calendar. So the first one, let's go ahead and call it title, which will be a string. The other one will be called details. And it's also going to be a string, but we're going to make this one optional. They don't always have to include details within their habit. We'll create another variable, which is created at. We're going to do capital date, another variable for progress, which is also going to be a date. However, it's within our square brackets like an array. So this is essentially going to store completed days. We are getting an error because the model requires an initializer. So let's go ahead and do that. We can use the autofill complete feature here, except we're going to only have the title and the details. So at this kind of comma here after nil, I'm going to remove these two options. And down here, when we have the created at, we're going to change this to be a date value with those empty brackets. And then we're actually going to have an empty array for that progress. So this is just going to grab whatever date it's actually created at, and the progress, it's going to kind of start with an empty array and then build that up as we kind of get those dates rolling in for the users. So why are we using SwiftData? Well, SwiftData makes it easy to persist user data without any complex core data setup. A colleague recently showed me SwiftData and I've been absolutely in love with it. All right, let's now go ahead and build the UI. Let's jump on over to our content view. If you really want to make this as detailed as possible, let's go ahead and rename this to HabitsListView. Wonderful. And in our structure here, let's also rename it. So I believe we called it HabitsListView. And we'll just have to go to our kind of Habit friend app. We have another task we have to do while we're here. So instead of booting to the content view, we will go to the Habits list view. And because we're using SwiftData, let's go ahead and import that now. And under the Habits list view here, let's go ahead and add the model container. So we'll do dot model container. Use the fill thing here. Do habit dot self. So this is going to attach model container. Wonderful. Let's go back to our habits list view, and we're going to also update our preview here so we get rid of that error. Okay, for our UI, we're going to also import SwiftData up top here. And then under the structure, we're going to be adding an environment, a query, and a state private variable. So the first one is the at environment. We'll do brackets / dot model context. Outside the brackets, we'll say private variable model context. So this is going to be our Swift data context. Let's close this panel here to make a little bit more room. Our preview doesn't need to be that big. We'll also add an at query, and we're going to have this one be a private variable for habits. Right, so we're using this query so we can use Swift data, right? It's going to fetch those habits that are stored within our Swift data. And we'll just call this one habit with a capital H. So we'll say fetches habits from Swift data. Then we'll do a state private variable. So at state private var, and this is going to be for showing add habit. We're going to set this to be false. So we're going to use this to control whether or not the sheet is presented where the users can input their habit information. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of everything we have within here. So even this VStack and this padding, let's go ahead and exit, and we're going to create a navigation view, not a navigation link. We're going to add a brace here, and we're also going to be having a list within here. Add a brace, add another space, and we're going to do for each. We're going to reference our habits. We'll add an opening brace here, and we'll say habit in, so single habit. Okay. Then our navigation link this time, we'll add a destination. I can use the autofill here. And we're going to go to HabitDetailView. The only thing that sucks about this is a view we haven't created yet. Also within here, we're going to have it a habit : habit. Because we haven't created this yet, we are going to get an error for a while, so our preview won't properly update. Oh no, which is really frustrating because it is nice to kind of see these things happen in real time. Don't worry, our UI is pretty basic. You're not missing out on too much. Okay, after this, within the brace here, we're going to add a VStack. And we can make this be alignment. And we'll have this be : dot leading. We want it to be at the start, kind of like top left adjusted. We'll then add another brace, some text, and we're going to have the habit dot title. We can set this to be a font. Let's do dot headline. Afterwards, we're going to have an if let statement. So our details are going to be optional. So we're going to use if let to make sure that that's protected. And we'll say details equals habit dot details. We'll add our brace here. We'll add some text for details, just like it's suggesting. And sure, let's do the font caption and then the foreground style. Let's have this be color dot gray. I think subheadline would also work pretty well there. Okay, next we're going to go, I believe it's 4 braces underneath. If not, let's check. We're going to go to the end of the for each. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So right after that, we're going to do a dot on delete. We're going to perform. This is where we're going to create a delete habit function after this. So we're going to say delete habit, going to get another error. doesn't exist, but this is going to allow us to swipe to delete habits. With these larger projects, you'll kind of notice we'll be making functions, we'll be referencing other Swift files that we have yet to create. Again, it kind of bricks the preview, unfortunately, but everything's going to fall into place, I promise. Okay, after this, we're going to go under the next brace here, and we're going to add our navigation title, and that is going to be my habits. I keep wanting to type habits with two B's, like rabbits. After that, we're going to add a toolbar, all lowercase. We're going to add a brace, and we're going to add a button within this toolbar, and it's going to have an action, and that action is going to be, so we're going to add a brace here. It's going to be showing add habit. So this private variable we've made above here, we're going to set this to be true. All right, at the end of this kind of code block here, we're going to add another brace. So right outside of those brackets, we're going to add a label here. And we're going to say add habit, comma, we'll add a system image. And let's go ahead and set that to be the plus. I believe it's not circle.fill. We can always check the object library if it doesn't show up, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's one of those things. It's like, yo, just trust me, bro. Okay, we're gonna go 2 braces below. So essentially we're going under the toolbar here, and we're going to do dot sheet bracket is presented. Camel case action there, and we're going to reference our binding of showing add habit. We'll add a brace outside of that bracket here, and we're going to reference our habit form view, which again does not exist. So we're going to get yet another error, but we're going to be fixing those momentarily. I promise. I promise. Again, just like so you can't see the preview. Okay, well, let's go ahead and create that function. So we're going to go all the way to the end, just above the last brace here. So above the preview, we have this other brace that's encapsulating our entire view. So right before that last one here, we're going to create a private function for deleting habits from the list. So I believe we called it delete habit. Delete habit. We're going to, within the parameters here, say at offsets index with a capital I set, add our brace, and we'll say for index in offsets, all lowercase here, add a brace model context dot delete, and then we'll have it be habits. Then we'll add our square brackets for our array. And within that, we're going to have an index. So that's basically going to look at where we're trying to delete this object. Let's say it's the third item, right? And then it's going to remove it from the row, and it's also going to delete it from the SwiftData. So it is absolutely gone forever. Okay, so we have our next few errors. We can either choose to do the detail view, what it kind of looks like, or we can do the form view. Let's go ahead and do the detail view next, but we can also create our form view just to get rid of the error. So we will be creating a new file from template here, and we're going to select on the user interface, SwiftUI view. And what did we call it again? I believe it was HabitDetailView. Go ahead and create that. And while we're still here, let's go ahead and create another file from template. SwiftUI view, form view. Pretty sure I called this the right things. Let's go back and just double check. All right, we had detail view and we had form view. And hey, I spelled them right. Oh, and I'm sorry, where we have delete habit, that should not have the brackets there. Let's go ahead and squash that bug real quick. So let's go ahead and work on our habit detail view, and then we'll create the forms for users to add them. You can do it in whatever order you want. So if you even want to use the timestamps and do a different order, up to you. So let's go ahead and go into our habit detail view. We're also going to import SwiftData in here just to be safe. We shouldn't be creating anything, but we'll make sure that it's imported anyways. Under our structure here, we're going to do at bindable. So instead of binding, bindable, we're going to create a variable. We'll call it habit. And this is going to basically be for our class of habit. We can also either pass the habit through the kind of binding here, right? Or we can just totally axe the preview to prevent those errors. All right, in our body of some view, let's go ahead and add a VStack, and we can add some text. So the first one we'll do is we'll display the title. So this one will be the habit.title. And then we can add the font, which will be large title. We also bold it, why not? Make it really stand out. Let's also show the optional details. And we'll use our if let statement again to kind of prevent any errors. So we'll say if let details equals habit.details. So if that does exist, then it'll display some text, which will just be those details that the user's created. And we can also add some font here. I think we did dot subheadline, maybe caption, I don't remember. You can change it around. And we'll also change the foreground style to also be dot gray. You can do color dot gray or dot gray. It's smart enough to figure out that you're trying to change the text color here. Okay, next we're going to create a scrollable view for the calendar. So here we're going to create a scroll view. And what we can actually do is we can use the kind of brackets and do dot horizontal. So now it's going to go from left to right, where normally a scroll view is up and down. All right, let's go ahead and add our brace, and we're going to add a lazy H grid, and this is going to allow us to be a little bit more flexible with the kind of amount of rows that the user is seeing. So speaking of, in the brackets, let's add some rows, so multiple with that S there, and we're going to add a colon, we're going to have square brackets, we're going to say grid item, capital G, another bracket, and we'll do dot fixed, and let's set this to be 50. We're then going to add another brace here, and we're going to say for each, and we'll create a range from 0 dot dot, and use the greater than symbol 30. We'll add another brace here, say day in, create some space, let date equals capital C calendar dot current dot date, add a bracket here by capital A adding dot day value minus day. I know there's a lot of things here. 2 colon capital D date with those empty parentheses. So this is kind of our logic of making sure that the users are going through each specific day. We're also going to add an exclamation point after that date. Now we're going to create a button, which is going to have an action. That action is going to be brace toggle completion for, in brackets, date. This is another function we're going to be creating in just a moment, so you will totally get an error, but we will be fixing everything, I promise. We're going to then add a brace after that, and we're going to display our dates in circles. Let's use a circle with the empty brackets. We can then add a fill, and we can do this based on whether or not that habit has been completed or not. So within this fill, we'll say habit dot progress dot contains, and from here we're going to pass along the date with a lowercase d. Outside of this bracket, we're going to add a question mark, and we're going to use that to be our ternary operator. So if it is completed, we will say color green. We'll use that colon for that kind of else within the ternary operator, and we'll have it be color dot gray. We can also add the opacity, set that to be 0.3. So if it has been completed, it'll be green. When the dates have yet to be completed, it'll be that kind of opacity gray. Let's add one more thing here. We'll add an overlay. Add a bracket here. We'll add some text. We will interpolate, we'll do / day +1, and we'll have the foreground color, so foreground style, sorry, I keep calling it foreground color. We'll have this be white, and we'll also have the font. Let's make it caption. Alrighty, let's go basically to the end of our project again. So right above the very last brace, we're going to create our private function for toggle completion. Double check that's how I spelt it. Toggle completion, correct. We'll need to add within the parameters the date, which will be for the date with a capital D. We'll do our if let index equals habit dot progress dot first index. Instead of where, we're going to do of date for the lowercase d. So basically, we're going to have a habit.progress.remove at index. So this is going to remove if already marked. Then we'll actually create an else statement at the end here. Say else habit.progress.append date. That's going to add if not marked. All right, we should be good to go in this Swift file. Let's hop on back over to our content view, or I think we had called it the habits list view here. Let's see if our errors have gone away. Maybe we can see our application. Yay, we can see our kind of default view for our habits here. If we press the button, it currently just says hello world. But let's go ahead and now add that form. And then once we're done with the form, we're in good shape. So as we saw earlier, we just kind of had our text hello world pop up. Now we're going to create our form. So our form will use text field for the habit name and text editor for optional details. So at the very top, we're going to go ahead and import SwiftData again. And under our structure here, we're going to get a ton of errors because our view is like currently empty and it's like, what are you doing? We're going to create two environments and two state private variables. So the first environment is the exact one that we had in our other view, where we're going to have the model context. So we're going to do /dot model context private var model context. If you even want to copy and paste it from the previous file, feel free to do so. And then we're going to do another @ environment, and this is going to actually be for, oh, make sure there's not a space there like with my other ones. We're going to be having the dismiss. We're going to do /dot dismiss, and this will also be a private variable dismiss. So this is going to allow us to dismiss the sheet. All right, we'll do the @state private variables. Those errors are bothering me down there. I might just get out of these decks, so they're gone. Anyways, the first one is going to be the habit name, and this is going to be a string. So we'll do :string, and we just have this equal an empty string for now. Make sure there's a space before you're at the empty string. And we'll add another state private variable, and we're going to call this one habit details. And this will also be a string, and it'll also be an empty one. So let's go ahead and get rid of these errors. They are bothering me. We'll add a navigation view, add a brace here. After that, we're going to immediately just declare a form and add a brace. So with the forms, you have different sections, and we can actually give them headers. So for this section, we will add a header. This is where we can add some text. And from here, we'll say habit name. Cool. And then we will go ahead and add our brace here, and this should update on the preview on the right side here. We'll give it a second. So we have our habit name up top, and within here we're going to add a text field, and our placeholder will be enter habit name, a comma, and then the information here is going to be the text. And we're going to reference our binding, so we use a $sign of that habit name that we created above. Cool. So we can see that we have our habit name. This is a text field, and we can interact and type it. It looks like my preview text editor is working randomly today. Okay, next we'll do a section. We'll add another header here, get the text. If you ever want to copy what we've done before to save time, feel free to do so. This one will be details. I want to let the user know that they don't have to necessarily include these details. From here, we'll add a text editor instead. And we actually don't need to put a placeholder here. Instead, we're just going to have some text. And we're going to do the binding of the habit details, right? That's why it's important when you are creating those variables that you make them something appropriate, so we know to reference them when we're coding or sharing them later. Okay, let's add a frame to our text editor. So we'll do .frame, and we'll add a height. I can spell. Let's set this to be 100 for now. If we want to make it bigger, that looks pretty decent. We can. And we can also add an overlay. And from here, we'll do a rounded rectangle. We'll add some corner radius here. Let's set it to be 10. And we can also add a dot stroke. And let's have this be color dot, let's try gray. Wonderful. I think we do need to add an extra bracket there. Yeah, so we can kind of see that we have this extra little rounded rectangle that's going around our text field. So it's a little bit more obvious to users where they're going to input their text. You can do whatever you want with these things, customize them to your heart's content. All right, let's hop out of this section and we will add one more section. And we're actually not going to add a header for this one, so we're just going to add our brace. This is going to be a button where they can save habit. We'll add a brace here, and we're going to reference a function we haven't created yet called saveHabit, and we're going to make this disabled. So after this button, we're going to say dot disabled, and we're going to make it so that's when the habit name is empty. So habit name dot is empty. So if there's nothing here, this save habit, instead of being blue, will be gray. It wants us to create that function for saving the habit. So let's go ahead and do that right before our last brace. Create a private function here. We'll call it save habit. Don't need anything within those parameters, actually. We're essentially going to say let new habit, let's make that one word with our camel case here, equals capital H habit. And we'll have the title and the details. So the title is going to be that habit name. And those details, while it is optional, will be the habit details. Now, because we want to handle the case of when it's empty, we'll do the details. Habit details dot is empty. We'll do the question mark. We're going to use our ternary operator again. It'll be nil. And then in the else case, it'll be the habit details. So basically this says, hey, if it's empty, pass along nil, doesn't need to exist, and we're not going to cause a crash. If it has things in it though, then populate that with those habit details, right? We can handle when that case is empty. All right, on the next line, we're going to have the model context. We're going to do dot insert. And within those brackets, we're going to go ahead and insert that new habit. So this is going to add that habit or task, whatever you're using this for, to SwiftData. Afterwards, we will dismiss. We're going to use those empty brackets there. Okay, so we can see when the name is empty, we can't actually press the button and save the habit. But if we add something, we can actually press on this and it'll dismiss. Just to make this a little bit more user-friendly for now, we will add a navigation title and we'll also add a toolbar to cancel. So let's go to the ending of our form. I'm just going to double click on that. It should be 2 braces after our disabling of the button here. And we're going to add a navigation title. Let's set this to be new habit. Let's see that I'll update on the screen there. Perfect. That's usually how I test to know I'm in the right spot. Then we'll add a toolbar again. We're going to add our brace. And we're actually going to use a toolbar item. And we'll have our placement. Let's set that to be actually cancellation action. We'll then add a brace here and we'll add a button that says cancel. We can add our brace here and we'll just say dismiss. Empty brackets. So when we press on the cancel button, it should just like dismiss the sheet. I'm also going to put a capital C on cancel here so it stands out a little bit more. Alrighty, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and go to our habits list view. Something I do find with the preview sometimes, it doesn't take our app the full way, especially when saving things. So let's press save here, and under the enter habit name, we'll call this one hello1, and under details, we'll just put detail 1, 2, 3. Let's save the habit. And again, it doesn't really do a great job of showing it up in the preview. If we run it on the simulator, we'll be able to see our app in real time. So let's go ahead, we'll select the iPhone 16, doesn't really matter what we use here, and let's see our app in action. Okay, here is our app. It is alive and well. Let's go ahead and create a new habit. We'll test some things out. First is we'll make sure we can create a new one. So we'll call this one first habit, and let's add some details. Details, yada yada, all right. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, we can see that it appears. Next, I want to create a habit with no details. So call this one no details. Go ahead and save that habit. Make sure that our save habit button doesn't work when the name's empty. Add some random text here, hit cancel. Nice, we can see that it's kind of refreshed. It's dismissed it, and it's also cleared out those text fields. Okay, let's check the first habit with the details. We can see that has the title here, nice and bold, and then the details would be gray and a little bit smaller. And we can see that we have all these different dates. We had set it to be 30 with the lazy. You can see it does all the way go all the way to 30. Now, because we haven't completed the day, we actually can't click on this one and make it green yet. Let's check how it looks without any details. Looks pretty great. We have our scrollable kind of calendar here. And let's go ahead and delete them. Something to also note when we're talking about making this more App Store ready, you might also want to change the order that these habits exist in. You can order them by alphabetical order, by date, etc. We did that in the Swift Intermediate tutorial. I believe that was part 2. So let's go ahead and delete this. And let's also test that when we relaunch this app, the one we deleted is gone, and the first habit should exist. So I'm going to double click on the home. Oh my goodness, I have so many things open here. I'm going to double click on the home. We're going to swipe this app away. And because we're using SwiftData, yay, we can see that it persists across app launches. Awesome job. And that is our Habit app. Now, what if you wanted to take this further? Well, first I'll mention that this entire project is available on my GitHub pages linked in the description below. But if we want to make this App Store ready, again, maybe change the order of some things, but better UI and UX enhancements are what's up. So if you want to add an onboarding screen to introduce users to the app, you can even implement Swift charts for the progress visualization. I just did this kind of like scrollable progress thing that we can kind of visually see how we're making progress. Swift charts would be a really cool addition to this. For the data and syncing, you might want to have iCloud Sync with App Storage or CloudKit to save progress across devices, and maybe some notifications to allow users to set daily habit reminders. If you are looking to add some monetization or growth, you can offer a free version of this app with limited habits and a pro upgrade. If you want more growth, you can integrate widgets and Apple Watch support to boost engagement. If you're looking to add App Store optimization, also known as ASO, you'll need to design an icon and branding. I'd also include that icon and branding somewhere within this app. This is very basic. We're just using like the system colors. We don't even have a background, right? When we also talk about that UI, UX enhancement, visuals, okay? You'll also want to have a compelling App Store description that highlights the benefits of using this app. So once you apply those improvements, your app will be ready for the App Store, attracting users and potentially even generating revenue. So that's a wrap. If you found this helpful, like and subscribe for more SwiftUI projects, concepts, and Swift learning. Dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one.